Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be taking our sixth look through the first 1000 Penguin books, and this time it's numbers 501 up to number 600. So we're just out of the wartime period now, and the books are becoming much better quality, and they're certainly nowhere near as rare as those wartime ones. So anyway, that's what we'll be looking at today. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay then, so we pick up on our journey through the first 1000 Penguin books with this one, which is number 501, Osbert Lancaster Cartoons. Penguin didn't do a lot of cartoon books. Lots of other publishers did, but Penguin didn't do many until the 60s when they sort of became popular. But this one is sort of contemporary cartoons of the period. A lot of them are politically based. Remember, this is just after the war now, so we're looking at February 1945, which puts this in perspective because the quality of the books has become much, much better, as we'll see going on. If you remember in the last video, the wartime ones from 1943, 1944 were particularly rotten books, printed on awful paper. These are so much better. This is number 502. Still a very thin book here, these early ones. This you could see has got almost wartime paper standards. Don't forget, rationing was still in force in the UK at this time. So they couldn't exactly go to town, but 502 was Together by Norman Douglas. 503, Dr. Johnson and Company, a biography title, Robert Lind. And I have to admit, when I started collecting the Penguins books back in probably the mid-80s, I started picking them up. 504 here, so Goodbye to Berlin. These post-war ones were the ones that you would come across quite a bit. I think they had massive print runs, and you'll find later on that Penguin really sort of embraced their backlist and went to town with certain authors, particularly, I think, as we'll see in this run of 100, you'll see it with Bernard Shaw, we'll see it with H.G. Wells. I'm not sure if we do it with Agatha Christie this time round, but you'll see that they start publishing little batches of like 5 or 10 books at a time, really cementing the list, really. Fantastic stuff. Lady Hester Stanhope, Joan Hastert biography title, number 505. Conrad, Joseph Conrad, Within the Tides. Bit of a worn one, that one for me, a bit of a beaten up copy, but on the whole, after number 500, with the exception of some crossword books, most of these are actually obtainable now. I myself am only missing one from this batch of 100, which we'll get to in a minute. And it's out there. I'm just not prepared to pay like £20 for a copy when one will turn up. 507, The Island of Captain Sparrow. Now, these ones between 500 and, say, 525, 530 in crime, I think are quite undervalued. A fair price on these would probably be around £10 a pop, because they are scarce, and the one that I'm missing falls in this bracket. Some of them, well, we'll get to in a minute. I've had multiple copies of. Sometimes I've had to wait a long time, and then a couple have come along at once, which is quite annoying. But I think these early crime ones, sort of 500 to 530, are all worth grabbing if you see them, because they're scarcer than you might think. This is another one that I think is quite hard to find. The Widow LaRouge, 509. 510 here. This is a bit of a famous one, isn't it? Diary of a Nobody. Also published in hardback around this time by Pan Books, before they got into the paperback game. This, I believe, is the first time we see one of these, and that's a Penguin double volume. It doesn't actually say double volume underneath, but you've got the Penguin logo both sides, and it's obviously much thicker than a normal Penguin. To say double volume on the spine there, number 511. I'm pretty sure this is the first ever Penguin double volume. And there's a few of these. This one's dated 1947, so that number obviously came back and was filled in at a later date. As I said, I'm showing these in numerical order rather than published order, although the two sort of follow quite closely. 512, another crime one, the Pit Prop Syndicate, Freeman Wills Croft. Now I'm going to be checking my Freeman Wills Crofts as we go along, because I've got a couple of signed ones. That is not a signed one by the author. Yeah, they're clearly signed by the author, which is quite nice, but I can't remember for the life of me which ones they are. They may not even be in the first 1,000. I honestly can't remember, but as I come across them, I'm going to try and remember to check them. This is The Prussian Officer by D.H. Lawrence. Now this would have had a 9p printed underneath, and the publisher have put a sticker on, putting it up to a shilling. Penguin were massive publishers of D.H. Lawrence, and they did end up publishing everything, including, of course, famously Lady Chatterley. 514, Inspector French and the Starville Tragedy, another Freeman Wills Croft one. Oh, there we are. We were just talking about it. There we are, look. Signed by Freeman Wills Croft. I wonder what that's... Oh, and that must be his wife. Is that Marge B. Crofts as well? How cool is that? I knew I had a couple, and I got these. They just turned up in a little collection of penguins that I bought, and a couple of the Freeman Wills Crofts were signed. Well, I'm really glad I checked that, because I didn't know it was such an early one, to be honest. I don't have too many signed penguins by penguin authors, unfortunately. I've often sort of tried to bid on ones that have turned up online, and I always seem to get outbid. I know there was a really nice 60s Agatha Christie penguin that was signed, and I think I put in a bit of, I don't know, 90 quid or something like that, and it went for like 300 and something, so I thought, a bit out of my league. Probably an Agatha Christie aficionado who's gone for that one, and I don't believe she signed that much, so to get a signed penguin would have been particularly nice, but hey ho. This is number 515, Trials in Burma, Maurice Collis, a biography title again. Documents marked secret. 516. This one's also got the publisher's over stamp on. This is one that caused me some issues getting hold of. Not calls for alarm, but calls for issues. Eventually, two came up to light within a couple of months of each other. I ended up getting this one off eBay for £5, so I was pretty pleased with that, because it was one that had been on my list. I did have another copy of it, but it was quite worn, and that itself was from another collector. So yeah, that one, quite a tough one. Now this is interesting. This is the first of the grey titles, sombre grey, and this is World Affairs. The first one of these, the Russian campaigns of 1944-1945, and these grey books all look at issues related to the war. I think they're really nice, quite difficult to find in high grade. Unfortunately, just outside the scope of this video, but it'll be in the next video, will be the Penguin edition of Hiroshima, which is a great grey title. Next one we've got is Arnold Bennett, 519, The Grim Smile of Five Towns. And one thing that I do remember very vividly about collecting the penguins at this time was that, because these are quite common, it was a great way to get a collection together. 520 here, not a classic, a curtain of green. It was a great way to start building a collection up, and I just sort of dove into actually reading them. This is the sort of time I started picking up and reading people like George Orwell, for example. I got really into him once I started picking up these sorts of periods of books. John Wyndham was another one. 521. This is another unusual World Affairs one, and quite quite scarce as well. Probably the scarcest of all the greys there. Book on anti-Semitism. $5.22, A Cure of Flesh. This one's another one that's a little bit worn. I haven't got round to going through these bit by bit and seeing which ones really need upgrading. It's a shame because some of the other ones from this period I've got are absolutely mint. But I think my priority would be to try and get the first 1,000 licked and then go through and try and upgrade, unless they come my way, of course. So this is 524, the first ever Penguin edition of Wuthering Heights. What an absolute classic this is, and I've got a real respect for some of these authors. Emily Bronte, this is a really nice book, this one, and nice nick, that one. That looks virtually unread, that copy of it. 525 is Hawk Among the Sparrows, Desmond Hawkins, a fiction title. 526 is Holy Terrors. Got to admit, it won't be long before we've got rid of this slightly awkward looking penguin. He does look like he's got constipation, doesn't he, or something like that. So 527, Hashish, Henry de Montfort, a travel one. I think the first travel one we've seen. I believe this one is quite sought after. And collectors who just collect the travel ones, and what a library that must be. Richard Caverne. So 528, The Shadow Syndicate. That one's another one which has been through the wars a little bit. One of the greater Joseph Conrad's, Lord Jim. 529, another great book. He's all right, Joseph Conrad, but I like the shorter books more than the longer ones. John Morris, Traveller from Tokyo. Obviously lots of these travel and adventure books coming out on the back of World War II. Another one which is quite scarce to find in any condition, number 531, another an early-ish post-war penguin crime, the Groot Park murder. Freeman Wills Croft again. The Library of Malcolm Gillett. I do like that. You see that sort of the indentation there in the book. Someone's put it in a press to put their owner's mark on it, and I like it sometimes when they're done like that because it gives them a bit of heritage. Certainly, some of the books coming up, which are absolutely mint, came from an ex-Penguin warehouse man, and his signature should still be in there with a bit of luck. So this is 532, Barlash of the Guard. Don't remember much about that one. 533 is Henry de Montfort, Sea Adventures. And I would say we've already gone past it, but number 523 is the one that I'm missing. It's the case of Suzanne Dare. But I've seen one. I could buy one today on eBay for like £20, but I'm not prepared to pay that. One will come my way. 534, Elizabeth Bowen, which is To the North. Nice tight copy of that one. And this is another one by her. So Penguin did start to do that. They would publish consecutive books by an author two at a time. So The House in Paris. And it may well be that they literally had just had a little backlog after the war, and they were sort of clearing what they had lined up. Ford, Madox Ford, real classic. This, The Good Soldier, part of his trilogy. In actual fact, this is a really nice tight copy of this one. 1946 now. And I think what we'll do, since the books are getting out of sight, I'm going to just pause there, make a little bit more room so we can have a look at them. There we are. So 537, this one's quite interesting because Once again, the price has gone up from £1, and there's a green over sticker on to keep in keeping with the green books. It's at £1.06. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? 1947. Another thick one now. Memoirs of a British Agent, Sir Bruce Lockhart. I believe this one's quite a famous novel. Another thick one, but not listed as a double volume. That one. Darkness at Noon, 539. Arthur Koestler. And when you think what a difference these are to the American books being published at this time, it's just a world apart, isn't it? 540, the third Penguin's Problem book. There's been a few of these, hasn't there? It's little mind benders and puzzles, get you thinking. Penguin got quite into puzzle books and crossword books. There's a whole separate series, the Patarmigans, which I've got them all, so we'll show those one day maybe. I'm just missing, in my collection, for the first 1,000, I think I'm missing just one crossword book, which is in the next 100, and then I've got them all, I think, which would be quite good. So I could show just all the crossword books, but it's a bit of a weird thing, and the only reason people sort of collect the crossword books now is just to have all the numbers, really. Pearls and Men, 641, another travel title. 642, The Brass Bottle. This is another one with an orange over sticker this time, with £1.06 on. I said a lot of these are really nice copies because they're just not as hard to get as some of the other ones. 543. We are becoming, much more recent now. These are only about 60 or 70 years old. Whereas the previous ones, the very earliest ones, were over 80 now. 544, The New House, Lettice Cooper. There she is. 545, Saki, H.H. Munro, The Unbearable Basington. Little classic in its own right, that one. That's a really nice copy. And this is another Saki. So this is when Penguin, they published 3 on the trot. Beasts and Super Beasts. It's like the second one. And then they did one more, which was this one. Chronicles of Clovis, 547. So the 3 of them all came out. They're all consecutive numbers. But as you can see, they've all got, these are all the first prints, they've all got slightly different designs. That one's got the older logos on. That one's got the more modern, up-to-date logo, which was just coming in. That one shows £1. That's got 1 and 6 printed as a number. £1 and 6. So even though those are 3 consecutive numbers, they are quite different when you line them all up like that. But they were consistent in the catalogue. Here's a real nice one. Virginibus Perisci, R.L. Stevenson. Never knew how to pronounce that one. One that I've had a long time. It's a really common book, that one. It's funny, the ones that you had the longest are sometimes not the greatest condition. Dorothy Whipple, High Wages. Well, we'd all like high wages, wouldn't we? That's a really nice type, probably unread copy, that one. 549. And the halfway point, 550. Bit of a classic, G.K. Chesterton's Napoleon of Notting Hill. Quite a thin little book, that one. And that was the 550th Penguin. Straight on with 551, which was Peter Waring, Forest Reed. 551. 552 was The Power of the Dog. This is a double volume for 2 shillings. Don Byrne. There he is. That's got a little, yeah, it's quite nice. Let's have a look at this. This has got a little insert inside, and it says, Penguin and Pelican double volumes. On the cover of this book, you will see 2 penguins, or maybe pelicans, in place of the familiar solitary bird. This ornithological duplication is the sign that it is a penguin or pelican double volume, and that its price is 2 shillings. We have long been faced with difficulties over books whose size made it economically impossible to issue them as a single volume penguins or pelicans at our standard price. In a number of cases, for example, Robert Graves's Claudius novels, Bernard Shaw's Intelligent Woman's Guide, Cherry Garrard's Worst Journey in the World, we have in the past issued such books in 2 volumes, but this has brought so many heartfelt cries from readers who could manage to find only one of the volumes, or whose predatory friends have borrowed half the book and lost it, that we concluded that to issue such books in future as single volumes at double price was the most practical way of doing the job. Well, there you go. I couldn't have put it better myself. So there's the little pelican double volume, and there's the two penguins. How great is that? Nice little insert, that one, in that double volume. 553, Fugitive from Murder, M.V. Herberdine. The Professor, another Charlotte Bronte one, 554. I guess all of these eventually will become Penguin classics, wouldn't they? In time. Now I'm sort of running out of room here again, so let me just move these over. That's the trouble when you're trying to show so many books in one video. It does make it a little tricky to get them all in shot. But I'm doing my best. No, it still doesn't make much difference, does it? I have to push them even further back, I think. We just get the edge of them in there. I'll push them there for now, and then I'll have a resort just before we get to the end. Here we are, so a very small number, but 555. Nostradamus. Yes, I know it's 555, because this was the book that I think it was published on the anniversary of Nostradamus's birth and death. In fact, he died on the same day in 1555. So that's why that book was given the number 555. Penguin would start to have a little bit of fun with their numbering system around that time. That's one of the early examples of it. Beau Sabur, P.C. Wren, author of Beau Jest, amongst other things. They're usually quite tough to find because they're always so well read. This one's interesting. So 557, Grail Grange. Now, this one is famous because the first edition doesn't seem to exist. No one has a copy. So it's the reprint from 1949. As far as we know, nobody, Penguin themselves even, have got a copy of that one in a first edition. Very, very mysterious. Arthur Morrison, 558, A Child of the Jago. Graham Greene, The Lawless Roads. There we are. Nice copy of that. Right, the next is a run of, I believe, 10 Bernard Shaws. So starting with this one, number 660. Now, I think this was the first time Penguin published 10 books simultaneously in an edition of 100,000. So If I just read the start here, this edition of Plays Pleasant is one of a uniform set of 10 volumes of Mr. Shaw's works, specially printed in commemoration of his 90th birthday, July the 26th, 1946. Of each volume, 100,000 copies has been printed, and it lists then all the companion volumes. So basically, it was turning him into a million seller overnight by printing 10 of his books in 100,000 print. So some of them have already come out, and they're not going to be shown here because we've already seen them, but they were reprinted in the modern edition. But it's hard to imagine someone like Bernard Shaw getting 100,000 books printed or a million titles in one hit. But there you go, 561, Plays Pleasant, and then we have Plays Unpleasant. He was given the honour, 562, 3 Plays for Puritans, and almost all my copies of these came from the same original owner. They were really, really nice. Man and Superman, 563. .564, The Doctor's Dilemma. St. Joan, 565. There's another copy of 565. Now, why have I got 2? What is the difference? Usually, there's a reason. And that's a really nice tight copy of that one. Oh, I can see the difference already. I've spotted it on the cover. So they both say they're first prints, but look, one says 1 shilling in writing and one says 1 shilling in the number. So the covers potentially, yeah, look, they both say first prints, but they both got different logos. They are actually different printings, those. So kept for the name of completeness. 586, 566, I should say, Androcles and the Lion. The Black Girl in Search of God, 567. And that's all the ones that were printed for the first time during that million. But there was a couple of earlier ones which were already in the Penguin list, which were reprinted in the uniform format. 568, The Lady's Road, Pamela Hinkson. Another nice tight copy of that one. The Leavenworth Case, Anna K. Green. Haven't seen a crime one for a while, have we? So it's quite nice. And I think what we'll do, we need to make some more space for the final time. So just going to pause it there one last time. Okay then, so we're back with one of my all-time favourite authors, which is H.G. Wells. Now, I've not read everything that he's written, but I have read an awful lot, including a lot of the historical fiction titles as well. And not to be outdone by Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells also got the treatment of 10 books published at the same time, starting with this one, number 570, which is The War of the Worlds. And this one, there's a little introduction. So it says, this edition of The War of the Worlds is one of a uniform set of 10 volumes of Mr. Wells's works, specially published in commemoration of his 80th birthday, September the 21st, 1946. Of each volume, 100,000 copies have been printed. The companion volumes are. And there we all are. So, like Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells got the treatment. It says The War of the Worlds. There's another copy of The War of the Worlds because it's one of my favourite novels of all time. I've got a couple of copies of it. There's a later reprint copy of it. This is, I believe, like a 60s copy. Let's have a look here. Yeah, 1964. Early artist adaptation of one of the tripods. So that's why those are in there, because I do love the book so much. Island of Dr. Moreau, 571. Little thin one. And then we've got Love of Mr. Lewisham, 572. Real nice tight copy of that one. and put those over there. Now I need to lean over here and get my final pile. So next, a real classic, The Time Machine, 573. Obviously the other great mystery one that they published was The Invisible Man, but that was like Penguin, I think Penguin 111 or 112. So that's published back in 1935, that one. History of Mr. Polly, 574. The New Machiavelli, 575. Another one which is probably unread, that was bordering on a double volume, I would say. As was this, Tono Bungay, 576. Another one which was, that was good value at £1, that, to be honest, compared to other ones of the time that were the same price. 577 then, The Tragic Comedians, George Meredith. 2 years Before the Mast. This is Travel and Adventure double volume, number 578. Hilaire Belloc, 579, The Green Overcoat. A lot of his books will be published by Penguin. In fact, pretty much the lot, I would think, over the course of the next 2 decades. 580, The Cardinal's Snuff Box. Now, I must have a look at the date of these. Yeah, so this is published 1946. And it just shows how Penguin had really ramped up their publication with so many in the same year. Another G.K. Chesterton, The Club of Queer Trades, 581. J.J. Conington, 582. Nordenholt's Million, that's another really, really nice tight copy of that particular one. Some crimes now. So Henry Wade, Here Comes the Copper, 583. Anthony Berkeley, Not to Be Taken, 584. Let's just move those over there ever so slightly. Let me make this final pile. Rex versus Anne Bickerton. This is a true crime title, 585. I believe it's true crime. Quite scarce, I believe, that one as well. The Twilight of the Gods, Richard Garnett, 586. Chesterton again, G.K. Chesterton, Man Alive, 587. .588, A Narrow Street, Elliot Poole, another double volume, £2. A few crimes now. So Anthony Berkeley, Mr. Priestley's Problem, 589. It's always nice to pick up a crime book. This would be a perfect example. Something I know nothing about this one. I've heard of Anthony Berkeley, obviously. I've got no idea how good a crime title that is. But if you've got a spare afternoon, just the sort of thing to dip into and see where it takes you. Another Anthony Berkeley here. This is one of 3. This is number 2, Trial and Error. So, once again, this is Penguin just putting a few books by the same author out at the same time. The Murder in the Basement, Anthony Berkeley as well, 591. Quite cool, isn't it? Henry James now, a bit of a famous one, The Turn of the Screw, 592. Famous Henry James novel there. .593, Kimono, John Paris. A fiction title, I'm guessing set in Japan. .594, Lobster Salad by Lynn Doyle. No thank you. Not today, please. .595, Adam and Eve and Pinch Me, A.E. Coppard, .595. 5.96, My Friend Prospero. And this is also quite interesting. Down the bottom there, 1 shilling and 6pence in text. A nice mint copy of this one. 1947 just. So we're into 1947. Policeman's Lot, 597. This one's interesting because the original number was misprinted as 592, and this one's got a 597 stamp underneath. I believe all copies are like that. You could probably find one without, but that's the correct numbering. A couple more greys now. So this is the Nuremberg trial, 598. Always remember a lady called Beryl, who used to work for my father. She was in the Women's Air Force during the war. She was there when they liberated Belsen, and one of her final roles during her national service was at the Nuremberg trials, and she was guarding the women Nazis. 599, The Anatomy of Peace, Emery Reeves. Unfortunately, that one's got, you can see something has been stuck to the front there, but apart from that, it's a really nice tight copy of that one. And then number 600, the honours went to none other than Oscar Wilde. Another plays, Salome and Other Plays by Oscar Wilde. There he is. And that copy, number 600, was published in, it doesn't give the British date, but I'm sure it's 1947. So there we are. That rounds up Penguins 501 to 600. I hope you've enjoyed going through those as much as I have. If you have enjoyed it, do please hit that subscribe button. Do please leave a like for regular Penguin content. I've got the rest of this 1000 to do, so that's a few more videos in itself, and then I've got potentially we could have a few looks at the Pelicans and the Puffin books, and well, there's all manner, isn't there? There's lots of, and of course I'd still collect, Penguin Beyond 1000. I've probably got I haven't got them all, but I'd collect up to the number sort of 3,300, up to when ISBNs came in, so that gives you sort of an idea. It's like 1970 down. So that's sort of my collecting period. So there'll be plenty there to go on coming forward. But anyway, thanks for watching today. As I said, I do hope you have enjoyed it. And I'll be back quite soon with the next 100. So I look forward to seeing you then. Bye.